It all began in a quiet neighborhood where life seemed ordinary, predictable, and safe. Families knew each other, children played in the streets, and people trusted the ones living next door. But behind the closed doors of one house, secrets were brewing that no one could have imagined. One decision, one shocking incident, and suddenly, the peace of the entire community was shattered. And in the middle of it all, a neighbor, someone no one would have expected, became the star witness. Before I unfold this unbelievable story, I want to welcome you to our channel, where we bring you the most gripping, true-to-life stories filled with mystery, drama, and lessons that will stay with you. If you love stories that keep you hooked until the last moment, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing family. Each day, we bring you a new tale that might make you see life differently. Now let's return to this story. The family in question was well respected. They smiled at everyone, hosted gatherings, and appeared to live a perfect life. But appearances can deceive, and in this case, they hid more than anyone could guess. One night, the sound of raised voices broke the calm of the neighborhood. A heated argument turned into something far darker. Police sirens soon pierced the silence, and flashing red and blue lights gathered outside the house. Neighbors peeked from behind their curtains, whispering among themselves, but one man, Mr. Harris, who lived just across the street, saw more than anyone else. From his front porch, he had an unobstructed view of what happened. He watched the scene unfold, not realizing that his testimony would later turn the case upside down. At first, he hesitated to come forward, not wanting to get involved in someone else's chaos. But as days passed, detectives knocked on his door, seeking answers only he could provide. The case began to make headlines. Rumors spread quickly. Some claimed it was about money, others whispered it was about betrayal, and still others insisted it was simply a crime of passion. But in court, speculation didn't matter. Facts mattered, and that's where Mr. Harris came in. He had witnessed a crucial moment, something so small yet so vital that it could either convict or free the accused. His words carried the weight of truth, or so everyone thought. But here's the twist. Once you step into the role of a witness, your life changes forever. Neighbors who once greeted you with warm smiles now look at you with suspicion. Friends distance themselves, and you find yourself caught between loyalty, fear, and the responsibility of speaking the truth. Mr. Harris was about to learn this the hard way. This story is not just about crime. It's about choices, consequences, and the power of one voice in the pursuit of justice. And as you'll see, sometimes the person you least expect becomes the one who holds the key to everything. The night of the trial was approaching, and the whole neighborhood waited anxiously. Everyone wanted to know, what exactly had Mr. Harris seen? And would his words finally uncover the truth, or would they destroy lives forever? The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with curious neighbors, reporters, and strangers who had followed the case in the headlines. The air was tense, every whisper echoing against the wooden walls, every movement watched closely. When Mr. Harris finally walked in, the room seemed to shift. Here was the man who had lived an ordinary life just a few weeks ago, now standing at the center of attention, carrying the weight of justice on his shoulders. The lawyers wasted no time. The defense tried to paint a picture of innocence, while the prosecution built a narrative of guilt. But both sides circled back to the same question. What had Mr. Harris seen that night? As he took the witness stand, you could see the nervousness in his eyes. His voice trembled at first, but then steadied as he began recounting every detail. He spoke about the argument that grew louder by the minute. He described how the accused stormed out of the house, pacing on the lawn, shouting words that made the situation even darker. He recalled the sudden silence, followed by a sound that made his heart race, a cry, sharp and filled with fear. And then the accused re-entered the house with a look that sent chills down his spine. These details, simple but vivid, captured the courtroom's attention. The prosecution leaned in, confident they were building an airtight case. Every word seemed to tighten the noose. The defense, however, fought back. They questioned Mr. Harris's position. Could he really see everything clearly from across the street at night? Was it possible his mind had filled in the gaps with assumptions? They tried to make him doubt himself, planting seeds of uncertainty that could sway the jury. And here's the cruel truth about being a witness. Memory is fragile. Even when you're certain of what you saw, under pressure, those certainties start to blur. As the defense grilled him, sweat formed on his brow. Doubt crept into his voice. The crowd began to murmur. Was this reliable testimony, or the shaky recollection of a nervous neighbor? Still, Mr. Harris pressed on. He insisted on what he had seen, holding on to the belief that his honesty would help the truth come out. But what he didn't realize was that his role was no longer just about describing events. His words were now a weapon, sharpened and twisted by both sides to fit their story. Whether he liked it or not, he was no longer just a neighbor. He was the key that could lock someone away for years or set them free. That night, when the trial recessed, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Some praised Mr. Harris for his courage, others whispered that he was seeking attention. What none of them knew was the internal battle he faced. Should he continue to stand firm, even if it meant ruining someone's life? Or was there a chance that he had misinterpreted what he saw? The weight of truth is heavy, and as the trial moved forward, it became clear that the final outcome depended not just on evidence, but on how much faith the jury placed in the words of one man, an ordinary neighbor thrown into extraordinary circumstances. The next morning, when Mr. Harris walked back into the courtroom, it was as if the world was waiting for him. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes, and whispers followed him with every step. He was no longer just a neighbor. He was the center of a storm, and he could feel the pressure closing in from every side. The prosecution began with a calm but forceful tone. They asked Mr. Harris to repeat what he had seen, hoping to drive the memory deeper into the jury's mind. He described once again the argument, the shouting, the cry, the chilling silence. Every word seemed to strengthen their case. The jurors leaned forward, hanging on to each detail as if it carried the weight of the verdict itself. But the defense was prepared. They brought in photographs of the neighborhood at night. They pointed out the distance between Mr. Harris's house and the accused's. They questioned the lighting, the angle of his view, even the reliability of his eyesight. Piece by piece, they chipped away at his testimony, painting a picture of doubt. And doubt, in a courtroom, can be as powerful as truth. Mr. Harris tried to hold firm. He told himself over and over that he had no reason to lie, no motive, but honesty. Yet the defense's questions made him feel trapped. What if the jurors thought he was exaggerating? What if his words sent an innocent person to prison? His voice began to falter. His hands gripped the edge of the stand, as if to steady himself. Outside the courtroom, the media had already chosen sides. Some headlines painted him as a hero who bravely stood up for justice. Others suggested he was an unreliable neighbor, blinded by bias or attention-seeking. His life, once quiet and simple, had become a public spectacle. Strangers now argued about his integrity, while he struggled to sleep at night under the weight of it all. And then came the turning point. The defense revealed that another neighbor, someone who lived even closer, claimed to have heard nothing at all that night. This revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Was Mr. Harris mistaken? Or was the other neighbor lying to protect the accused? The courtroom was divided, the jury visibly shaken by the contradiction. For Mr. Harris, the moment was crushing. He wasn't used to being doubted, to having every word dissected and challenged. But in that moment, he realized the truth of his situation. Justice wasn't about what he knew, but about what he could prove. And sometimes, proof is far more fragile than memory. As he stepped down from the stand, the weight of the case hung heavy on him. He had spoken his truth, but would it be enough? The jurors exchanged uneasy glances. The lawyers prepared for the next round, and the accused sat silently, their fate hanging on whether or not one neighbor's words could withstand the storm of doubt. The trial was far from over, and in the days to come, Mr. Harris would discover that being a witness meant more than testifying. It meant carrying the burden of doubt, judgment, and the terrifying possibility of being wrong. The courtroom was silent as the closing arguments began. The prosecution leaned heavily on Mr. Harris's testimony, reminding the jury that he had no reason to lie, no gain from telling his story. They painted him as an ordinary man, caught in extraordinary circumstances, a voice of truth in a case clouded with shadows. The defense, however, struck back with equal force. They reminded the jury of the contradictions, the distance, the uncertainty. They warned that convicting someone on the word of a single neighbor was dangerous, that doubt was reason enough to set the accused free. Every sentence they spoke planted seeds of hesitation. The jurors withdrew to deliberate, and the world waited. Hours passed like days. Mr. Harris sat alone on a wooden bench in the hallway, his hands trembling, his heart pounding with every muffled sound behind the jury room door. He had never imagined that telling the truth could feel so heavy, so terrifying. Finally, the jurors returned. Faces unreadable, eyes fixed ahead, they handed the note to the judge. The room held its breath as the verdict was read. Gasps filled the courtroom, some in relief, others in outrage. For one side, justice had been served. For the other, injustice had prevailed. And at the heart of it all stood Mr. Harris, the neighbor who had become the star witness. As he walked out of the courthouse, cameras flashed, microphones crowded near his face, and voices shouted his name. But inside, Mr. Harris felt only silence. He wasn't thinking about headlines or history. He was thinking about the long nights ahead, lying awake, replaying every word he had spoken, every doubt he had wrestled with. Being a witness had changed him. He now understood that truth is not always enough, that in a world of arguments and evidence, truth can be twisted, doubted, or overshadowed. He had stepped into the spotlight unwillingly, and now he would live with the echoes of that choice forever. And as the courthouse steps grew smaller behind him, one thought lingered. Justice is never simple. It is a fragile balance, shaped by memory, by doubt, and by the courage of those who choose to speak. Friends, this story reminds us that sometimes ordinary people are thrust into extraordinary roles. Mr. Harris never asked to be the center of attention, yet his voice carried the weight of justice itself. In life, we may all face moments where our choices matter more than we realize. When that day comes, may we have the courage to stand firm in truth, even when the world questions us. Thank you for watching this story to the very end. If it moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this. We share new videos daily, each with a message worth carrying. Until next time, remember, your voice matters more than you know.